to the all-Canadian reptile girl with me, Anoles. In the hobby, there are a lot of reptiles that are widely marketed as starter reptiles or good reptiles for kids. Many of them are truly amazing starter pets, but there are also some on that list that, in my opinion, probably shouldn't be included. Today I will take you through my list of inappropriately labeled entry-level reptiles. Before I get into it, I want to be clear. I am not saying that reptiles on this list make bad pets, or that a beginner or a kid can't do a great job in caring for them. But because of their requirements or temperament, these reptiles probably should be thought of as a little bit more intermediate than entry level. But fear not, friends, for each of these reptiles that I have on my list, I will provide an alternative pet that I think would be more suitable for someone new. To me, a good starter reptile should be gentle. It's a special kind of person that wants to get bitten by their brand new pet, right? Easy to care for. Housing, heat, humidity, and lighting requirements that are easy to maintain. Easy to feed. Simple dietary requirements and a willingness to eat. There is nothing more frustrating than a reptile that refuses food. Ball python. Oh, I'm sorry. Did that sound like words? Weird. And finally, forgiving. Mistakes happen even with the most experienced keepers. But if a relatively minor error in diet or care can cause disfigurement, illness, or death, it's not an optimal starter reptile. Make sense? Okay, great. In no particular order, here is my list. First is the green Anole or Anole. It seems that no matter which way you pronounce it, someone is going to correct you. I think that either is fine, but Clint at Clint's Reptiles goes with Anole, and who am I to argue with a PhD? Well, hi there. Anoles are fairly small, unlikely to bite, not that they could hurt you if they did, a gorgeous bright green color, and are widely available in pet stores. At least in the States. They aren't quite as common in Canada, but they are still pretty easy to find. And for cheap, like $10 to $15. Makes them sound like a great pet, doesn't it? Well, while they are docile, these are extremely fast and flighty little lizards. So handling them without putting in the work to tame them and get them used to you will be tricky. They are fairly fragile and can drop their nice long tail when threatened. And if they do get away from you, be prepared to spend the afternoon playing an epic game of Capture the Anole as it darts around your home, freaking out your cats and discovering all the very best hiding spots. Anoles may be cheap, but the stuff they need to thrive is not. Even though they are a tiny lizard, they are very active and do best in a much bigger enclosure than the 10-gallon recommended by Petco. It also needs to retain humidity, but have adequate ventilation. That's not always cheap. They need heating set up to create a vertical temperature gradient. They require UVB lighting, which is expensive and needs to be replaced every 6 to 12 months, and a steady supply of feeder insects. Sadly, a lot of Anole keepers don't feel like shelling out hundreds of dollars for their $10 pet, and then their Anole ends up being kept in poor conditions. But don't worry, I have an equally adorable alternative that is much better suited for a new keeper. Ooh, she's so cute. Please don't jump. Just go here for a second while I re-button my pocket. Crested geckos like my girl Night Monkey here. Beautiful? You betcha. Gonna bite ya? No. Cheap? No. Not really. They aren't crazy expensive, but Cresties are not $10 lizards. Hi. There are premium morphs that run hundreds of dollars, or many thousands of nickels if you want to carry your cash in the heaviest way possible. But it's usually not hard to find one for under $100. Good job. Which is not unreasonable at all for a companion that would be with you for 15 to 20 years. Like Anoles, Cresties are small arboreal lizards that can climb anything thanks to these amazing toe pads. They are a little hardier and usually aren't quite as flighty as Anoles, but be warned, they do like to jump, and they don't always concern themselves with having an appropriate landing spot before they are airborne. They can also drop their tail if it's pinched or if they feel threatened or startled, so you do need to be gentle with them. They don't require a really big enclosure, nor do they need expensive UVB, although there are studies that show that they do benefit from having it. They don't really need it. They eat a powder-based diet that you just mix with water and serve it to them a few times a week. It doesn't get much easier than that, does it? They are sensitive to high temperatures, so you'll need minimal heating, if any at all. Their humidity is not hard to maintain either. Cresties are adorable, very gentle and sweet, and having them thrive in your care is so much easier than it is with Anoles. Alright, on to turtles! Yes, I know this is a tortoise. Agatha here is the closest thing I've got to a turtle. Anyway, little baby turtles, not much bigger than a toonie. That's a Canadian $2 coin if you are not familiar with Canada's circus money. Are sold for super cheap, but they don't stay small for long. They need a lot of space, not only to swim, but they also need to be able to get up out of the water to bask and dry off completely. So ideally, they need both an aquarium and a terrarium in one enclosure. That can be tough to pull off. On top of that, they need heat and UVB, a varied diet and water chemistry and filtration. That's a lot for a new keeper. And I haven't even mentioned the poop. Turtles were actually my very first reptile when I lived in the States. I had 2 yellow-bellied sliders, tulip and tiger lily, and a musk turtle named Yordle that I hatched from an egg I found on a hiking trail. But that's a story for another day. We had to rehome them when we moved back to Canada, and I missed them a lot, but oh boy were they a lot of work. The sliders were set up in an indoor pond with a basking area that they shared with my cat Oscar for some reason. Even with multiple big canister filters keeping the water clean, my dad was constantly fiddling with them. Turtles are wonderful as someone else's pet. If you're new, just don't get a turtle. But if you have your heart set on an aquatic pet with a goofy smile that excitedly swims up to see you, wiggling with excitement at the chance that you might give them a little treat, get some guppies.
You serious?
Look, I never said that the alternative pet would be a reptile, did I? Guppies are adorable, way friendlier than turtles, and a fraction of the work. They do like to breed though, so be prepared for a lot of guppies, or feed some to your garter snakes. You do have garter snakes, right? They are Canada's coolest snake species after all, and a good beginner snake in their own right. Are you digging my list so far? If so, why not hit that like button? It really helps out my channel, and I'd appreciate that a whole lot. Okay, last on my list is ball python. Whoa, give me a chance to explain myself here. See, this is why I asked for the like before we got here. Alright, look, I love ball pythons too. Millions of people can call ball pythons, like everybody's best buddy Monty here, their very first pet reptile. They usually have a very gentle disposition. They are a solid snake, but don't get too big. At his biggest, Monty here is 4'8". That's actually fairly big for a male ball python. Big females can sometimes get up to 6 feet, but that's pretty unusual. Typically, they're a very manageable size of between 3 to 5 feet. They have adorable little faces. They are beautiful and come in hundreds of morphs. They don't need UV, their heat and humidity requirements are not unreasonable. So why don't I think that they're a great starter reptile? Feeding. Some ball pythons are great eaters that never miss a meal. If that's describing your ball python, lucky you. Because a lot of them can be very picky. If the rat is half a degree too hot or too cold, unacceptable. If you don't move enough, take that dead thing away from me, peasant. Wiggle it too much? Ah, now it's scary.
Do it again. Wait. Let me lick it.
Unbelievable. Some people have more success feeding live, but that can be risky, and it's not something many beginner keepers are comfortable with. Some ball pythons will go weeks or even months without eating. Like Skinny Monty here, who just last week had his first meal since Halloween. Good job, buddy. You did it. He just goes off food from November to April. That sounds incredible, but it's usually not a big deal. These guys can easily go a long time between meals with no ill effects on their health. While they will eventually start eating again, it can be extremely stressful for new keepers and even ones that have been keeping snakes for a little while. It stresses me out sometimes. And if you don't have another snake to eat what your ball python turns his nose up at, a lot of wasted food too. Thank goodness for Tituba, my boa imperator, who has been Monty's dedicated garbage disposal for the past 5 months. Ball pythons are wonderful pets, but I don't think that they are an ideal starter reptile. So, what is a good alternative to a ball python? Well, the easy answer is a corn snake. In my opinion, they are the best beginner reptile. They are gentle, beautiful, and just about the easiest snake to take care of. But if the look and feel of a ball python is more your thing, you're probably wanting something a little beefier than a corn snake. I mean, even my giant corn snake Dozer here is nowhere near the heft of Monty, even at his skinniest. So, assuming you want a thicker snake, what's a better alternative to a ball python? How about a Dumerals boa? Okay, hear me out. I know this may seem like a little too much snake for a new keeper, and in some cases, you might be right. As an adult, Dumerals could be too much for a younger kid, but a baby would certainly be manageable. Not a baby person. A baby Dumerals boa would be manageable for a kid. You know what? I think Mom should help me with these from now on.
Okay, bye.
Drama queen. Dumerals boas are very slow growing snakes, not getting to full size until they are at least 5 or 6 years old. So it could be a great snake to grow with you or your child. I have 2 Dumerals boas, Tessara here, and her boyfriend Romeo. They are both just a bit over 6 feet, which is the top end of their typical 4 to 6. Not too different from a ball python, really, in terms of length at least. As adults though, they are significantly thicker and stronger than a ball python. In fact, this is probably the strongest snake you can get. Well, the king snakes are technically the strongest pound for pound champs, but they're itty bitty, so. There's something special about handling a Dumerals boa. You can immediately feel their power, and it's just awesome. It's like a hug. They can generate 6 times the force of a ball python, 3 times that of a reticulated or Burmese python, and more than twice that of the mighty boa constrictor. If these guys are so strong, then why on earth am I saying that they'd be good for new keepers? Oh yeah, laziness. The snake's laziness, not yours, not mine. Their scientific name literally translates to lazy or useless snake. These guys are as gentle as they are strong and are the definition of a lap snake. You want a snake to sit motionless all day watching movies with you? This is the snake for you. Tessara was doing her best to make a liar out of me a minute ago, but that's just because she doesn't really like filming. What she really wants to do right now is curl up on my lap under a blanket and sleep. So, as long as you are not an aspiring YouTube educator holding your Dumerals ground boa way up off of the floor for filming back-to-back videos for a couple of hours in the middle of her nap time, you should have a very easy time handling your Dumerals. In terms of care and husbandry, super easy, barely an inconvenience. If you can manage a corn snake's care requirements, you can do a Dumerals. Just scale up the size a little bit. No UVB needed, no super high heat or high humidity. Because they are so lazy, I only feed mine every 6 to 8 weeks, but they are great eaters, so there should be no issues with hunger strikes. Honestly, the only downside to a Dumerals boa is their poop. Once a month, it looks like a giant German Shepherd somehow broke into their tank and took a big dump. But other than that, they are beautiful, really gentle, and tolerate handling very well. And they're extremely easy to care for. So what do you think of my list? Agree? Disagree? I know that there are probably lots of other reptiles that I could have included. If you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see in future videos, Let me know that too. But most importantly, remember to nurture all nature. Bye! Gecko tail. I feel like I'm standing like a Skyrim character. The size of a Canadian toonie. A Canadian toonie? Where else would you get toonies from? Australia? Their drop bears will impale you, but they will not give you toonies. Unless there's a Canadian who has toonies and lives in Australia. Stop poking holes in my analogy. I forgot where I was. I see your belly button. Snakes have belly buttons, by the way, if you didn't know that.